always on the grow is, I think, putting behind you when there's this common misconception of people saying you've changed.
Hmm.
That's a good thing. That can be a great thing. And always trying to be conscious of personal development. So being able to grow personally, like, yes, you can grow and scale your business, but it's not going to be as successful as it could be if you're not growing yourself. And trust me, it's taken me a long, long time to even know what personal development is and things like that. But I just spend a lot of time kind of reflecting on how I react to things, how I take things in, and different things that affect my personal life, but also my business too. So make sure you're not just trying to grow and scale your business to have that, $10 billion portfolio or to have a jet plane, but make sure that you're growing personally too.
Amazing. I shouldn't even say usually, Ashley. Whenever I start these things, by the way, he's already got this thing rolling, so we don't mess around. We just get right into it. But I usually ask the question, hey, tell us some about yourself. What's your journey like? And then from that, I start to fine tune and find all the points to start pulling out all the greatness and asking some even more specialized questions. So from that point.
And then you realize how you can sell me.
Yeah. Sell you what? I actually don't have anything to sell you. Dang it. We were in that room
I want a copy of Steve's book.
There you go. That's right. We were in the room together a couple weeks ago, and I didn't even sell you anything in there. We were honored to have you in there. So What a blessing. And now we're here. Look at this.
I did learn so much from you.
See, hey.
Yeah.
Well, listen, we can get that testimony later, right? Actually, we could just carve out 5 minutes at the end where you give me a testimonial from when I was talking about sales.
You cut off my life story to give a testimony.
Yeah, that's going to be our insert for this show. For what's the famous TV line? Interrupting our regularly scheduled programming for this short clip. Here we go, and then you jump in. All right, back to business, because we can have fun all day long, I'm sure. But no, seriously, obviously you got a great story. You're dominating in real estate at the moment, and you work with people on how to really get going at the beginner level, right? I think that's kind of your core focus from what I grasp from everything. But roll it back for us. Take us back to the place where, and you can launch at any point you want with your story or your journey to take us on that ride. Take us on the ride of life so we can get to know a little bit more about you.
Okay. Well, when I was a senior in high school, I took an accounting class and I thought, you know what? I actually like this. I like the numbers. I like the bookkeeping and the debits and the credits. And so I decided to go to college for accounting. I graduated with an accounting and a finance degree. And for 2 years while I was in college, I interned at a CPA firm. And I just could not wait until that day they gave me my offer letter when I would go full time. And that day came and it was the biggest disappointment I've ever had. And I was just like in shock. And I'm pretty sure I probably cried. It was just not what I expected. It was really not that much of a raise from what I was making as an intern. And so I lasted 6 months at the CPA firm before I put in my 2 weeks notice. I quit in the middle of tax season and I was just like, I hate this. I dreaded every day going there. I was so sick of what I was doing. It was just the same thing every single day and sitting in a desk. And I realized that was not me. So I quit my job there. And growing up, my neighbor, he had a bunch of businesses and he asked me to help him get organized. So he hired me part-time to work for him. And what that job was to be organized was to manage a 40-unit apartment complex. And so I knew nothing about managing a property. And he must have thought because I was an accountant that I could at least do the bookkeeping for the property. So my first day, it was literally an office with no windows and no AC and just a little tiny attached bathroom. It was in the middle of the 40-unit apartment complex. And there was a bunch of keys in a drawer and a bunch of one-page leases in a box. And it was, good luck, here you go. And so I had to kind of figure it all out. And it took me probably about 2 years to actually figure out you can use, systems and processes, you can use software and people can pay online and not have to come to the office and submit a maintenance request to me personally. So there was a lot of figuring out, and definitely was a journey to get to where I am today. But starting with that first job is where I saw what real estate investing could do for someone. And that same investor that I was working for, he was purchasing a business, and he let me help with the purchase of the business. And he took me to the closing table, and he let me write out the big checks. And those checks were from his 40-unit apartment complex. He refinanced that, pulled the cash out, and that cash was how he was buying the business. And that right there was just like an aha moment for me.
Yep.
And that's when I went to his son and I was like, we have to do this. Look what your dad is doing. And that's where I started my real estate journey.
That's interesting. Now, see, why I love that is because after I saw you in Texas, funny enough, I went over to another guy who is friends of Steve, and he has about 6,000 units. And so we spent a couple of days together because they want me to come in and help them with some sales stuff, if you know what I'm saying. And he recommended some books for me because I'm going to play the dummy in this conversation, right? So we're going to teach the dummy today. I mean, I know some general stuff, right? Obviously. But he said, you got to read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which most people in the world have read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Now, I actually bought all the books that he said that day that he recommended. And so when I got home back to Vegas, I bought the books, and I'm actually finished with Rich Dad, Poor Dad in less than about a week and a half now. And it's funny, in that book, he talks about the first thing that you need to learn is accounting. And so my next natural question becomes, how important is that piece to you becoming a successful real estate investor and understanding the business more than it is about all these other potential elements that are also included? Or is it accounting plus other things as well? Because I'm sure there's a lot of different dynamics, but why I'm going there, one is because it's so natural that you opened up with that you were an accounting individual in terms of your profession, and then you transition to real estate investing and you realize, oh, it's probably a background that I could use in this thing, right? So the importance of it, and what should one do to start to get better at that if they don't have any sort of education around that?
Yeah, there was, when I was in college, actually, the chief of police came into the accounting class, and he said, I'm coming to speak to you today because I don't want anybody that it has a criminal justice degree. It is pointless. I want somebody that has a different background in accounting. We need, officers that have that accounting experience. He said, I'll teach you everything you need to know about criminal justice when you come to your, training or whatever before you actually become a police officer. So that right there was my first inkling of how important accounting can be, and just many different aspects of different careers and jobs and for entrepreneurs. But I think there's actually a lot of careers where your skills can translate into some kind of benefit opportunity to give you that step up to be, a real estate investor. There's different skills that can kind of transgress into that. Today, I just interviewed a teacher who quit her teaching job to be a wholesaler. And she talked about, as a teacher, you need to have this curriculum, and you're really good at notating, students' reports, and you're keeping track of their grades and all these things. And she labeled as to how much that helped her become a really great real estate investor because she learned those skills as a teacher. So I think accounting is definitely useful because you have an understanding of your finances. You can read a profit and loss statement. You can read a balance sheet statement. And I think that is really, really helpful. And if you don't have any kind of understanding or don't even know what those statements mean, that you can definitely rely on your CPA, an accountant, a bookkeeper to help you read those. But I think having, as the owner of your business, having an understanding of how to read them is really important. You don't have to be super integrate and knowing exactly what every single thing is. There's a great software called Stessa, and Stessa is a real estate specific bookkeeping software. And I like to refer to it more as an asset management software. So it's not a property management software, it's asset management. You can link your bank account. And it gives you specific categories to put your expenses, to record your income that relate to real estate investing. Where if you go and get QuickBooks or any general, you are just overwhelmed with your options and choices of different things that you can do. Where this keeps it nice and easy and simplified, and you can easily pull off the reports that are important to you as an investor, like a cash flow statement. You can also, as far as asset management software, that also will keep track of your insurance. So you can, attach your insurance policy in there, set a little reminder that it's expiring, make sure you're, bidding it out if you want to renew it, things like that too. So for somebody who doesn't know a lot about accounting, I would recommend checking out Stessa.com.
Interesting. Now, would you recommend someone getting into some sort of an online course or academy or something like that from any institution for that matter, or just some general accounting course? I heard it was look, this is what people say, and I'm curious your thoughts on that it's the accounting is the language of money. Do you agree with that?
I think there's a lot of people that have gotten by without having that knowledge. I think that there's probably an opportunity to make more money if they would have had that knowledge, but I think you can still be successful without having a strong knowledge in accounting. You just have to have a routine, and that's your bookkeeper, that's your accountant, and then if you have an asset manager. So having those, those kind of components that are telling you what these statements are. So if you're unclear right now, hire somebody to do your bookkeeping, set up a meeting with them every month as to you're reviewing the reports, things you don't understand, have them relate to you. Part that I do get worried about is if you don't have an understanding of it, someone could literally be telling you anything and funneling money out of your business. Yeah. So you want to have some understanding of where your money is going.
That makes
sense.
But
YouTube University,
right?
There's so much information you can learn about just the basics of bookkeeping and understanding your financial statements, but also looking at your actual bank account too. As to looking at what expenses are coming out daily, what rental income is coming in. So even if you're not doing the hands-on bookkeeping, just keeping an eye on your account and looking for anything that looks kind of out of the ordinary. And then as far as taxes, having a basic understanding of what are some of the tax advantages of being a real estate investor. And if you don't know anything about taxes, you want to understand what kind of questions you can ask your CPA or your accountant if they do have an understanding of what kind of benefits there are for real estate investors. Because if you ask someone, hey, did you, worked with real estate investors before? Almost in any industry, someone, yeah, because they want your business or, some form of that. But if you tailor it as to what percentage of your clients are real estate investors, and then, questions like, do you know about the short-term rental loophole and different things like that? And actually, I just interviewed a CPA, Natalie Galoti, and she was saying that, these are some of the questions she has clients ask different CPAs and things like that she recommends so that you can get an understanding if they actually know what they're talking about and what they're doing for real estate investors.
Right. So I'm going to make a mark on that too, because you are the host of the Bigger Pockets Real Estate Rookie podcast, right? Did I say that right? That can be that can be a mouthful if you don't slow that one down, especially for someone like me. I can start messing those words up. So that's an incredible thing that you're working on. But before we head off in that beautiful direction, I want to go back to that point where you said, hey, you started working with this investor. He had, was it 40 units, right? Is that the right word? Was it doors or units you said? Units?
Yeah, it was a 40-unit apartment complex.
40-unit apartment complex. He was refinancing to buy a new business, which at that point you said, my God, that's genius. I see that. What do you do next? I want us to really go back to this place where you start taking the actual steps to what happened next. And you know what? If you got to throw in there, I went out to try to refi my house and I blew it all and I messed up and I lost $100,000. Hey, don't leave that part out now, Ashley. We want to know all those goodies too. We don't want to leave all the true lessons that come along with this process, but really take us through this process that helped you start to become what it is you've done today, which is obviously a lot of different accomplishments that you've been able to bring to life.
Yeah, so I had become close with his son, and we had been childhood friends growing up. And so I started talking to him about real estate investing, and he was like kind of interested. And he said, I have a lot of savings just sitting, and I didn't have a lot of money to invest. So I thought this might be a great opportunity. And I kept talking to him about it. And so I just started looking online at property for sale, and I found this one single family house, and I was like, this is small, it's in a good area, this would be a great rental. So I called the agent. I've never bought a house before. So I just called the agent that had it listed, and I was like, I'd like to see this property. And so she said, well, you do know it's like in a flood zone, and the property was recently flooded and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. Like, I didn't know what to say. And so she like set an appointment for me to come look at it. And I like panicked. I was like, I can't buy this property. Like, I don't know anything about it. So I'm pretty sure I just shot her an email. I was like, sorry, I'm not interested anymore. And then that was it. I didn't even have like the nerve to call back and say like, you know what, I'm sorry. I don't want to look at it anymore. So then the next property that came up was a duplex for sale in a different town. And this was the town where the 40-unit apartment complex was. So I was very familiar with this area. And I called my mom's friend, who was a real estate agent this time, and she took me to see it. And so I brought Evan with me, the friend growing up, and we walked through the property. And I was like, this is what I think it can rent for and things like that. So we ended up buying it. I had a limited mindset at that point because I had only seen his father buy properties with cash. So I didn't know you could go to the bank, you could get an investment loan.
Mm-hmm.
I knew a little bit about seller financing because his dad had done that on a deal, but this was, I just thought I had to buy cash. That was my only option. So that limited mindset, I took him on as a partner because he had the cash. And so we purchased that first property together. And the big mistake that I made on that property, it wasn't a deal breaker by means, but being our first deal, and it was just a small duplex, our cash flow was not super great. We were paying back my partner the mortgage, and then he was also getting, cash flow, and I was getting cash flow from it. But I forgot to account for, when I was running the numbers before we purchased it, snow plowing. And this property is in Buffalo, New York. So, that was a couple $100 that ended up coming out of our pocket because I didn't account for that into our numbers. And it was just like, that was something that should have been so obvious to do. And I made that mistake.
So I want to go back to that part where you say you had a limited mindset, because you said there was another option, which was financing, I think is what you said there, right? Investment financing. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if that was the exact word, but you said that you ended up getting the cash from Evan. Can you explain to us the other option and how that would have worked possibly in terms of being able to go get what it sounds like is other money from what would be the bank, it sounds like, right? And you said you had seen or heard seller financing, but that's not where you were. So what's the alternative? Because I really want to demystify a lot of this stuff for people. And I guess I would even ask a deeper level of that. What do you need to have in order to get that particular financing so that you don't have to go out and find a cash partner like Evan? Like, what are the different options there, and how would we actually go into that to make that a reality? Because everybody out there is going to be listening and thinking, oh, shit, I want to go invest in real estate, which, by the way, I feel like everybody in the world wants to invest in real estate, but something just holds them back, whether it's the money or they don't know how or the limited mindset, right? So let's take this journey together where we can start to debunk some of what the world thinks out there about what it takes to become an investor.
Yeah, so the first thing I could have done was the property that I was living in at the time, there was no mortgage on it. It was a house paid off, and could have went and got a HELOC on it, a home equity line of credit. So with that, I could have used those funds to purchase the property with. So looking at your current assets and what money you have available from those assets, like your primary residence, or maybe you have another rental property that you can get a line of credit on. Another thing is looking at retirement accounts or your brokerage accounts where you have stock investments. So retirement accounts like a 401k, you can usually borrow money. You're paying interest on that money, but that interest is being paid back to your 401k, which is in turn, the interest is being paid to you. The downside of that is that you're pulling your money out of the stock market, so it's not working for you in the stock market, but hopefully you're investing it into another property that's going to give you a better return, and then you're just paying yourself back. Another option is if you do have a brokerage account, and there are limitations on this, like usually you have to have at least $100,000 invested, and it can't be a retirement account, and you can get a line of credit on that amount of money. So if you think of, you go to a house and you get a line of credit on your house is collateral. Well, in this case with the brokerage account, your brokerage account is the collateral, which is a lot more liquid. So, you stop paying, you default, the bank just goes in and they cash out your investments and take that cash and they walk away. So usually it's a really, really low interest rate because it is a lot more liquid. So looking at that as an option too, if you do have a brokerage account with a lot of money in it, you can leave that money invested in the stock market and then get the line of credit against that. And then the next thing is just going to a bank and asking what kind of financing they have. So 3 years after this, I bought a property and I was trying to buy a property. I got it under contract. I had no idea how I was going to pay for it. And I went to the bank and I was talking to the lender and he said, well, I can offer you a 90-day unsecured loan and I can loan you that money to make a cash purchase on the property. Then once you close on the property, we'll go and have it appraised and we'll do long-term financing on it and pay off the 90-day loan I just gave you. So my mind exploded at that meeting. I was like, I didn't even know anything like this existed. And that's where some of my mindset shifted as to never go into a bank and say, this is the loan product I need, because the standard loan product for an investment property is 20% down on the property.
Right.
And you're usually paying a little bit higher interest rate. You can get it fixed over 30 years, 20 years, 15 years, whatever. But I never would have known about this option if I would have went in and just saying, I want to do this type of loan. So I always recommend going to a loan officer and saying, this is what I'm trying to do. What products can you offer me to, make this happen? So usually I take the loan officers that I work with and I literally copy and paste the same email. Like, here's the property I'm looking at purchasing. Here's some details on it. What loan products do you have to offer? Send. And it takes me, 5 minutes because it's just copy and paste to the loan officer. And then I wait and see what they have to offer and they email me back. And I love email because, you can see how timely they are with their response. You also have the responses in written form where it's not like they're calling you and you're trying to make dinner, the kids are trying to get their homework done and chaos is going on and you're like, what was that interest rate? What were the terms again? I can't remember what he had said. So having everything in writing to kind of compare the options, but especially small local banks, they have a lot of different options they're able to provide because they have more wiggle room because they're not as structured as the big banks are.
Interesting. So if someone goes in to do that, are there specifics or requirements that they have to have in order? They have that, pun intended, they have to have their house in order, meaning some financials that are in place, like they can't have bad credit, or do they have to have a certain amount of cash in the bank to get approved for those loans, or are those for any John, Joe, or Sally that walk into the bank? Obviously, that's probably not the case. So something tells me you got to have something working for you, right? You can't just walk in there as if you got a job. I hope so, or something that's paying you something to some extent. So fill me in on what that would look like. And obviously, I'm sure it depends on what market you're in. Obviously, you're in the Northeast in Buffalo. We're here in Vegas. I'm sure there's some variances there, variables as well. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, honestly, despite the market, it really depends more on the loan product.
Okay.
So if you're doing a residential loan, they're going to want to look at your income. If you have a W-2 job, they'll want like 4 weeks of pay stubs and, last year's W-2, they'll want 2 years of tax returns. If you're an entrepreneur, they'll want to see that you had business income the last 2 years. So if you just started a new business and you don't have W-2, waiting those 2 years to get just a traditional loan can kind of be agonizing, waiting for, 2 years of profit to go and get a traditional loan.
Mm-hmm.
You can also go to the commercial side of lending, which I've done often, where they look a little bit at you, like making sure you have good credit, making sure that you have, some income, but it's more about them looking at the property itself. And they're more worried about what the property can appraise for, and that the income coming in from the property will cover the mortgage payment and the monthly expenses. So there's also DSCR loans that have, become pretty popular now, where they could be in your personal name or they could be in an LLC. And this is where it's based more off of the income of the property than actually your debt to income, where income comes into play. So this is a big issue that investors run into, is their debt to income. So even if they have great credit, they have, $100,000 in the bank, and, they have great income coming in, all of these mortgages from these rental properties they're collecting. Once you have, you start writing off expenses, all these different things, and you're not showing a huge paper income on your tax return, this can affect your debt to income ratio. And banks will say, well, you know what, your monthly income is only, 2 times higher than what your mortgage payments are, and we want it to actually be 3 times higher, whatever it may be. So with a DSCR or DSCR loan, they don't look at that, your debt to income. They look more that the property can support the mortgage payments and the monthly expenses, like your real estate taxes and your insurance.
And to that point, you probably, if you're just starting off, you don't know what any of that is, right? So that's probably not likely if you're just kind of getting going, or it is. And if you're smart enough to work this process and maybe have a great mentor like you next to them that can help them paint this picture, what does that actually look like in terms of making that come to life? Because it sounds like it's probably a loan product as well, right? Or just a different type of a loan product?
Yeah, that's a loan product. So the loan officer would walk you through that. So if you're trying to get a loan, you have a property in mind, or you're under contract on a property. So if you're buying a rental property, you should have some understanding of how to run the numbers on a property. So Bigger Pockets has a great calculator that you can use on their website to do the analysis, and it tells you, what numbers you need to look at, where you can find those numbers for the property. So before you even start investing in real estate, you should do some research on how to analyze, like how to find what the property can rent for, how to find what your property taxes are, how to find what your insurance is, how to find, what your utilities costs are going to be, how to find, estimate your snow plowing. So different things like that, estimate your repairs and maintenance. So you should be able to, and this is what I did for that loan product where they gave me the 90-day unsecured loan. I literally had printed off the Bigger Pockets calculator report and gave that to the loan officer. Like, show him, like, this is a great deal. This property is going to cash flow well. I'm buying it under market. So the way you can find, what the property is going to rent for is looking at comparables. So if you're working with a real estate agent, they should be able to pull any, rentals that have been rented off of the MLS. You can also go to Rent Estimator. Bigger Pockets has a rent insight tool too, where you can pull up comparables for your area. And then even just like looking on Zillow, looking at apartments.com and different websites to see what's currently listed. You can get an idea of what you'll be able to list the apartment for, and just be conservative on your numbers. Don't think like, oh, you know what, I think I can push it to the max at 1,800, even though everything else is at 1,600. So don't fudge your numbers. And then, so if they look at, the numbers that you provide them, and, they'll have the underwriter go over it and call out if they see any issues or whatever. But a DSCR loan is something that a new investor could 100% get.
Wow. That's amazing. Is there any special techniques you can go in there and schmooze over the loan officer and talk that good talk with them and, really get them buttered up?
I don't know. If you want to get like a discount on your...
Where they can send you some favoritism. They can, cross out a couple things and rewrite the contract, especially, I'm sure there's.
So if you are going to do schmoozing, you got to do it on the commercial side of lending because they definitely have a lot more flexibility. So on commercial side of lending, you'll get a commitment letter. And this is, what your interest rate is going to be, like terms like, is there going to be a prepayment penalty? Like saying, if you pay off this loan in 2 years, you also have to pay us 3% of whatever the loan balance is too for closing out the loan early, because banks are getting so sick of everybody just refinancing. So a lot of lenders are putting in these prepayment penalties that if you pay off your loan early, you have to pay a percentage. So you can request to have those prepayment penalties removed. There's also usually a commitment fee where the bank will say, okay, yes, we're gonna, we've done our due diligence on you, the property, we're gonna, do this loan for you. And this is on residential and commercial, well, they'll give you that commitment letter. But in commercial specifically, there's usually a fee, and that's called your commitment fee. And this is the bank saying, okay, you are committing to this agreement so that if you end up backing out and we don't close on this loan, that's your fee for us, like going forward and working on the loan. But it's not like it's refundable. You never get it back, but they collect that fee in case you don't actually go through with the loan product, because it is usually more work on their end to continue through with the loan.
Got it. You talked about some of the things that people don't necessarily think of, I guess, is what comes to my mind when going through this process, beginner, sort of intermediate, more advanced, obviously not having those difficulties, but where are the stones that get left unturned? In other words, what I'm saying is, where do people that are getting going, I don't want to make this sound bad, but go to die in this process where it cannibalizes their deal, or they make the mistake. They didn't see it because they're the rookie. And obviously with everything, when you're going through it for the first several times, you're making all these mistakes. You're like, damn, I wish I'd have known that. But next time you get better. How can you help us anticipate that better and see those stones that are seemingly invincible or hiding, so that there's things that we can, in essence, go anticipate, right? And not make the mistake of avoiding them for whatever reason there is?
That's a great question. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that, and my mind is spinning. And
I'm a damn good podcast host. That's why I figure out all the stones to turn over in the conversation. Now, Ashley, let's go.
You have somebody with a cue card that's holding up that question, don't you?
I've been drinking. I'm drinking. I'm just kidding. It's sparkling water.
So, the first thing that comes to mind is getting a partner. So this was a huge benefit to me when I first started, is just having somebody to talk things through with. And I also partnered with somebody he had no experience in real estate investing, but he was also running one of his dad's companies. So he had an entrepreneur mindset. He had graduated from a great school of business, and he had all of these special skills that I knew could kind of help me if I did get stuck or things like that. And also he had a lot of resources, as to he was well connected and he had a lot of savings. So we used some of his savings, but not all of it, to purchase his property. So for me, that was kind of like my safety net, is having somebody else to go through this process with. And yes, I missed the snow removal costs on there, but I think for me, having that other person to kind of checks and balance, because this was his money he was dumping into this. And he said to me a lot of times, I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm trusting you with, I think it was $75,000 we bought the duplex for. He's like, I'm literally just trusting you, and we're buying this house. This is crazy, but I really, really trust you. And so I think that also gave me some confidence. And the second thing I would add, besides getting a partner, is to get some kind of experience in real estate investing. So for me, I became a property manager. It felt like overnight, but acquiring the property is one thing, but managing the property, I could do that in my sleep at that point. I'd been a property manager for 2 years for this investor. So I was like, I can do this. And so that was a really great benefit that I had that leg up, that I already knew how to do the property management piece. Obviously, I'm not telling everybody to go out there and quit their job and be a property manager. I tried, I ripped my hair out, I hated it. It was awful. Right. But if you can get some kind of experience in real estate investing, so you could go on weekends and show apartments for an investor or an apartment complex. I met this sheriff one time when he was in college. He did maintenance requests for an investor. He would get a stack of papers in the morning and he would call and schedule with the tenants in between his classes. And in between classes, he'd run and go fix the toilet and do these different things. And, you get to make those connections. And that's part of the reason I think that I had such a great loan product with that one bank, is because I had worked on deals with them for the other investor. And I got to know the loan officers because I was doing all of his loans too. So I was able to make connections with a lot of people in the industry just from working for another investor. So if there is a way that you can kind of insert yourself, or, maybe it's driving for dollars for a wholesaler, or it's going to properties and taking pictures for a wholesaler, flipper, anyone just buying the property. There's so many different things that you could do that could add value, that you'll pick up little bits of pieces and really learn just enough to give you that confidence.
Yeah, that's great. Reminds me kind of, when you first get into something, finding that mentor that you can go shine his shoes, or you can drive them to the airport when they need it. And, you act crazy. By the way, I used to do that when I first got into this world. I've got thousands of stories. Thousands is a big number. I shouldn't say that, but probably a couple handfuls. And you say you just throw stuff out there. Sometimes you're like, it's ridiculous that I just said thousands. It's not thousands, God darn it. But you know what I mean? I got to pull it back. It's probably, a couple handfuls. Anywho, I was thinking about what you said there about getting a partner at the beginning of that. And I thought about, because I think this is something people probably deal with a lot, and challenge me on this, Ashley, if you wish. But what value do I bring to the table, right? Like, why would I find a partner, or how am I valuable, type of thing, And people have these self-defeating conversations with themselves. And so how did you at that time position it so that it was equal partnership, right? Obviously, he was bringing the cash. Were you saying, hey, I've done these deals, I've been around your dad? Like how did you structure or begin to have that dialogue where the deal would make sense and it would come together?
Well, if I would have said, well, I've been around your dad, he would have said, well, I've been around him. I lived with him for 20 years. So that would have worked. But that's a great point. And honestly, it wasn't fair. It was not equal. Looking back, I would never ever do this deal now, but it's what got me started. And we already talked about how he was putting a lot of trust in me because he didn't know anything about real estate. Yes, I had some experience, but it was still my first deal. So what we did was we set up an LLC together, because that's what his dad had done with business partners, is set up an LLC. So that's what we did. And so we set up the LLC and we were 50-50. So we were 50% of the equity and then we'd get 50% of the cash flow. But what we also did was we set him up as the note holder. So he held the mortgage on the property. So that $75,000 that we had used to purchase the property, he was the mortgage holder. So we set it up that he was going to get mortgage payments every single month. So he was getting paid back that principal. Plus, he was making 5.5% interest. So we'd get a principal and interest payment every year or every month, and it was amortized over 15 years. Then he was also getting 50% of the equity from the debt pay down and appreciation, and then also 50% of the cash flow. So I was just getting 50% of the cash flow, and I owned 50% equity of the property. And I was doing all the work. I managed property. If we had to do repairs or maintenance, I was calling the contractors, getting them in. I, did all the leasing, things like that. And I did all of that for the property. And so, over time, he definitely made out way better. All he had to do was, write me that check for $75,000, walk the property once, and then, nothing else the whole time. So I think that it's very hard for somebody to do something that's not fair. But I think that for your first several deals, that it is worth it giving up a little something just to get started, to show your worth, to prove it to someone. So don't get too bent up on what's fair, what's the best percentage, because some percentage is usually better than no percentage if you're not even going to do the deal because you're so bent out of shape of what's fair and what you should be able to get.
Yeah.
But I think for bringing something to the table, I call it like the 4 puzzle pieces, as to usually the reason people don't get started is because they don't have money, they don't have time, they don't have experience or knowledge. And then the last thing is they don't have courage. They're too afraid.
Let's go.
So you can think of one of those things that you're missing, or maybe 2. Like mine was, I didn't have money and I was afraid. I didn't have courage. I wanted that security blanket of a partner. And you can go out and find somebody that can provide those benefits. And then all of a sudden you have all the pieces fit together. And, so really looking at someone else's strengths and weaknesses too can really help you build that partnership to purchase that property.
The concept of bringing something to the table makes sense. When you're just getting started, you have to, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's got to be that trade-off, I guess, right? That it says, if you want to get in the game, like you just said, you got to have money. If you don't have money, then you look to what? Time. Okay, if you don't have time, well then education, knowledge. 4th thing you said was courage. Okay, so let's say you start looping in between those 4 things. If you don't have the money, then you better be willing to pick up the shovel. And that's just my example. So Jesus Christ, you guys know what I'm saying. You just got to start shoveling a little bit. That means work, folks. Work it. So you got to work. And so, okay, well, what kind of work can one expect, Ashley? Like what would they actually expect to be doing? Because it's easy. Money here. Write the check. Okay, thanks. Go do your job. Work is where I think a lot of people actually, they don't have the money, because unfortunately a lot of people just don't have money. And so the work of the time is going to probably be the thing that they have more of. Courage is easy to access, in my opinion. Knowledge is also something you can invest the time to go get better at, but then you got to apply, right? Work, if I go back to the work thing for me, what does that actually mean when somebody's got to do the work? Is it like, I got to go and dust off carpets and I got to go and paint walls? Like, what are we talking about here? And how long? I guess, and how much time of a day would they need to be actually applying work?
So that's all negotiable with your partner.
Okay.
And so here's some examples of the work that you can do, that you can bring to the table, and that's finding the deal. So are you, cold calling sellers? Are you door knocking, sending out letters? Are you doing that work of finding a deal and actively bringing in leads to, you and your partner? Then there's also the property management. Then there's also, if you're remodeling it, actually doing the remodel. So my second partner I ever had, he was the construction side, I was the property management side. We were 50-50. He did all the repairs and maintenance, anything that needed to be done like that. And I did all of the desk stuff, the bookkeeping, the property management, handled the tenants, things like that. So, doing the actual physical labor of repairs and maintenance on the property, doing turnovers on it. And then, there's also the bookkeeping side. There's who's in charge of, contacting the accountant to get the tax return done, who's making sure there's insurance on the property, all these different things that actually can be done. And when starting a partnership, it is so critical to outline whose responsibility is what. Instead of just coming in saying, we're just going to share doing everything, is write out an outline of who is responsible. Even if the person isn't actually doing the task, they're the one that's going to be responsible of the person who's doing it. So example, if you have a contractor that is coming in to fix a plumbing issue, me, Ashley, I'm responsible for vendors we bring in, contractors we bring in. So it's my job to make sure that maintenance request was complete. The contractor did their job. So, or you have a property management, but somebody still has to oversee the property management company, because they definitely make mistakes too, and they don't care about your property as much as you do. So defining what those roles and responsibilities are. And then if you are actually putting in some sweat equity, you're going to be doing some of the tasks like bookkeeping or repairs. Set a dollar amount as to what you are paid hourly out of your company to do that work. So that way, 1 year from now, when I decide, I don't want to do the bookkeeping, we're going to hire a virtual assistant to do it. And now you're paying $100 a month for somebody else to do the bookkeeping. Your partner goes, well, I'm still doing the repairs and maintenance and I'm still only getting 50, you're getting 50, but now we're paying a bookkeeper. So we're both getting less cash flow, but you don't have to do anything now. And that's where it becomes unfair. And that's where it can cause kind of, a little, aggression between each of you. But if you already write out so that I actually am getting paid, X amount a month to be the bookkeeper. So when you go ahead and each month you look, okay, here was our profit this month. Ashley's getting paid $50 to do our bookkeeping. Now what we have left is $300. That's our cash flow for the month. And we split it 50-50 after you're each paid for your duties.
Okay, so I think something caught my attention in there. And I'm going to ask a selfish question. All right, it's going to be a selfish one. But you said somebody can pick up the phone, they can call out, they can generate leads, they can knock on doors. Now, I ain't saying I'm about to go knock on any doors or anything like that, but I'm a damn good sales professional, if you know what I'm saying.
You're hired. Yes, you can find deals for me.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so, well, look, see how easy that was, ladies and gentlemen? I'm starting my real estate career right here during this podcast episode with Ashley, the one and only Ashley Kehr. That's what I'm saying right there. So, but in a serious note, so you're saying that someone like me could come in with my skill and I can guarantee, look, they made things in life I guarantee, but I can guarantee you I can get people on the phone and get them to say yes to things. With no list, that just let me get to work. So you're saying I can get myself involved in real estate deals and become partner in some of those and get equity or cash flow and some other things like that with this skill set that I have? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, 100%. And we should have talked about this at the very beginning of the podcast because we could have just done a whole little mini master class of all the ways that you can make money by being good at sales and real estate. But so the big thing is that, finding leads is a huge part of being a real estate investor. So whether that's somebody like a real estate agent sending them to you, or that's a wholesaler sending them to you, but a wholesaler gets their leads off market. So the off market leads tend to usually be better, because, you're not competing against other people on the MLS, things like that, but there's still great deals on the MLS. I don't want to discontinue that because I still buy deals on MLS, but with your, set of skills, your qualities is you're able to take a list of warm leads or cold leads and contact them and, see if they're interested in buying their house. So I have a friend that, he does a lot of the sales. He goes and meets the person. So what he does is he creates a list of houses that he wants to target. So they call it their buy box. Okay. So he'll go and find the properties that are in his buy box. And you can either send out letters to the people, which I've done before. You just send out a very generic letter or whatever with your phone number for them to call you. And you can also call them directly, skip trace their phone number. But what your important piece would be, and what I like about his method especially, is that first phone call, all he does is try to get them to say if they're open to selling their house. Mm-hmm. They'd be open to an offer. And if they say yes, then he knows like, okay, I can continue it on or not. But if you're bringing in leads, like you're getting people who want to sell their house, what you would have to learn before you did that was, what is their house worth? And so having some kind of knowledge of what ARV is, because you could get somebody, so that's after repair value, you could get somebody to sell their house to you all day long, but you want to make sure that you're getting it at the right price too. And that's where you could partner with someone to say, hey, you come with me. We walk this property together. You don't say anything except whisper in my ear what purchase price we need. And I'll do all the talking, all the schmoozing, and I'll get that price point for you. So I think that's where you could add a lot of value to someone already without having knowledge of like, this is what I need to pay for the property. You bring in somebody else who has that knowledge of like, this is what the price would be. Then you take that property, you get it under contract, you rub that 7-year-old lady's shoulders and saying, you're going to love the new senior living house.
How you talking my language?
And she sign it away. And then You can either take that contract and you can wholesale it to somebody else. So you're not even buying the house. You're just literally selling the contract to somebody else. And they're, an investor that's going to take the house to flip, do whatever with, and you make an assignment fee off of that. So that's where they pay you. You find them such a great deal, they'll pay you $5,000 extra on top of what that property was. Or, I've seen assignment fees that, can go up to $100,000 or more, or as little as $500, depending on how the deal ends up playing out. Or you can take that property yourself and you could start the rehab and, flip the property, or you could turn it into a rental. So yeah, that's how I think that you can have a lot of value, is to getting people to sign on a piece of paper, sell their house.
My question for you is, why was she a 70-year-old lady?
Because my friend that I gave the example for how in the first phone call he wants them to give or to see open for an offer. His joke that he always says when he tells his story of how he gets deals is that his sweet spot is women over the age of 70, and that's a guaranteed deal.
That's funny. That's too funny. Okay, so I understand that. So I guess even probing that a little bit more, I wouldn't just want to get paid a commission off of a wholesale deal. Maybe I'm misunderstanding this. What if I wanted to be, if I was really good and, like you were bringing the money, I was going to find the deals. Is that a good match, by the way? Like, I find the deals, you bring the money, you take care of all the actual securing it and buying it and all that stuff. If I got to help do this other extra sales stuff, that's fine. And then are there opportunities out there for someone like me that says, well, no, you're going to repair it. It's going to become worth, and it's going to be $100,000 of equity in a couple of years. I want to partner on that. And also what we get, if that's the type of deal. And, again, because I guess you could say a fairly new guy to this talk, my thought is, no, I want to be a part of the bigger deal. Like, I want to be a part of the bigger pie.
Yeah. So,
is that a possibility?
Wholesaling, everybody, if you're partnering with anyone, you're both just making the assignment fee. So that's your profit. You're getting a percentage of that. But if you decide to hold the property, you can always take some equity and say, I'm not taking, cash now for finding the deal. I just want to take a piece of the equity of the property. And there is no wrong, way to negotiate that, because it's between you and your partner. So they say, you know what, I cannot find a deal. I will literally give you 60% of the deal. If you just find one, I'll take care of the rest. Like, great for you. Or, it could be someone who's like, you know what, I have deals already coming in. You want to bring someone, you want to be a part of that, I will do a joint venture agreement with you where you can have 10%. So I have another friend who's actually doing that with contractors. So he actually gives the contractors an option to have a percentage of the deal on flips he's doing. So he'll do like, okay, you know what, give me your bid, but I'll also give you 10% equity in the deal or something like that. And, they'll negotiate a new rate. And the benefit to that is now the contractor gets a little taste of equity and he can make more money because he's getting a percentage of the deal. He's also more motivated because he wants a great finished end product, because that means he's going to make more money too.
So you're saying there's a chance.
Yeah.
So there's a future. So I could become the world's most foremost, I put those words backwards. Foremost known. Is that what it is? Is it foremost? Does that word make sense? Am I saying that right? The world's foremost known? Help me out here. Is that right?
I don't know, but I'll tell you this real quick. My son last night was reading The Wise Investor. He's 7. And this is a book by Rich Becky. And this is a grown-up book. And he's reading it. And I'm like, tell me what's happening. And he's like, why? And I was like, tell me about what's going on. He's like, I don't know. I just read because I want to learn new words. I'm like, you don't comprehend any of it? He's like, no, I just want to learn new words. I'm like,
I like that.
Has anyone ever told you about a dictionary?
Yeah, it is.
I pulled up on my phone a screenshot of a page of a dictionary. He read the whole thing, and now his mind is blown. He can't wait till he has library the next day at school so he can check out the dictionary.
By the way, I love that.
What'd you find?
So what is the meaning of foremost thing? The foremost thing or person in a group is the most important or best. See, I was going on the right track. I just didn't know how to put the
Yeah.
damn words together. I said foremost. So I was putting foremost and known together. That's going to be a short we're going to clip out. And it's going to be one of them jokes about how to speak properly in a podcast, and we'll riddle it out. But listen.
The word of the day. We all learned something.
Foremost. What I was saying is I can become the most foremost known real estate sales investor because I get all the deals and all the leads, and I can partner and I can make the most money, and then I can go out there and become famous for it all. What do you think?
Yeah. And then you can start selling your coaching classes and your courses.
That's what I'm talking about. All right, listen, we had way too much fun. It goes too fast. This was a mini masterclass, in my opinion. I'd love to have you back for another round if you can find some time to accommodate us here with Always on the Grow and the cool, all the grow getters out here, because that's what we are, a bunch of grow getters, if you know what I mean.
What? Only if we can do like you calling a lead or something and closing.
I like that a lot. Maybe we can.
Fun?
Yeah, maybe we. That sounds like so much fun. Let's do that.
Okay.
Oh, I am. Listen, I would, if you know somebody that wants to go battle it out on outbound cold calling and getting people on the phone and talking to people, I will put myself against anybody in the world. Anybody.
Okay, I have somebody, so let's do this. Let's do some kind of challenge.
We're organizing it after we get off this podcast. You figure out what you need to do on your side and basically where we need to show up to. We'll get down to business.
Okay.
It's going to happen.
Okay.
You're awesome, by the way. I love that. So final thoughts, anything that you want to cover that we didn't, I'd love to have you back for another one. Lastly, obviously, I want you to tell us where we can find some more about you and check you out on your socials, and obviously listen to you on your podcast, which is amazing. And then I'll ask you one final question.
Hey, yeah. Well, I appreciate you having me so much. You can find out more information about me at Wealth from Rentals on Instagram. And then also I have 2 books, Real Estate Rookie and also Real Estate Partnerships. So I think if you are struggling to get started, the best thing you can do is to take action, even if that action is analyzing 1 deal a day, or that action is reaching out to lenders, or that action is going into the Bigger Pockets forums and, connecting with other investors. So I think there's a lot of different ways you can take action. That doesn't mean buying a property, the next day.
Yeah. By the way, I think for some reason this is sort of an old way of thinking that I used to have, where you almost feel inferior to people that have had more success, or that there's certain personality characteristics or traits that they have, and that therefore that's why they're successful. But in meeting you, you're the sweetest, kindest, coolest, calm, mellow-minded, farm, buffalo, snow getting type of lady. And it's just like, you're just chill, but you're doing some badass things out there, and it's pretty amazing. So I say that because I don't want anybody to bypass the fact that you're an awesome person just doing her thing every day. And there's no...
You're saying you usually have extraordinary people on here who amaze you, and instead it's just plain Jane me that amazes you.
See, that's where you go on making me the bad guy, Ashley. That's where you go make me the bad guy.
Oh, I love it. I mean, I'm literally sitting in my sweatpants right now, it's almost 9:00 where I am, time to wind down, read my book. Yeah.
That's too funny. See, she made me, so I got to figure out a comeback for that one. But I transitioned to my last question before I bury myself into some deep snow. See what I did there? Buffalo style. Yeah. By the way, you guys got when I met the first time, I was like, you guys just had a great win against the Dolphins. Then 2 weeks later, here we're talking about you got your ass kicked against the Chiefs. And come on, guys. Godly, let's go. Just beat them for once. I've
never gotten so many sympathy texts as I did that night after that game.
That's unfortunate. You were so close. I like you all. I think you guys play some good football. I don't know how you do it in that weather, but there's always next year. There's always next year.
That's the Bills motto.
Yeah, right. Bills Mafia. All right, Rockstar. What does always on the grow mean to you?
Always on the grow is, I think, putting behind you when there's this common misconception of people saying you've changed. That's a good thing. That can be a great thing. And always trying to be conscious of personal development. So being able to grow personally, like, yes, you can grow and scale your business, but it's not going to be as successful as it could be if you're not growing yourself. And trust me, it's taken me a long, long time to even know what personal development is and things like that. But I do spend a lot of time kind of reflecting on how I react to things, how I take things in, and different things that affect my personal life, but also my business too. So make sure you're not just trying to grow and scale your business to have that, $10 billion portfolio or to have a jet plane, but make sure that you're growing personally too.
Amazing. Well, you're incredible. Thank you for being here. You're a superstar. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we have finished our show. See, if I was cool like you doing it for Bigger Pockets, I'd probably have a script right here. And by the way, we're just at the end of our Bigger Pockets podcast. And signing off today.
Actually, no, I don't have a script. I just do it off the cuff, but thank you.
I had to give you a hard time for that. God bless. You're the best. And we got a challenge to take on. Let's go get it.
Okay.
Appreciate you. I'll text you. Thanks, Ashley.
Okay. Thank you.